So if you've been looking for a job, then chances are you've taken an assessment or two. And I'm sure what you're hearing from the recruiter is that the assessment is used in conjunction with your resume and your interview to make a hiring decision. Well, I conducted over 10,000 interviews with thousands of candidates, and I can tell you categorically that the assessment could be the reason you don't get the job. So that's why I wanted to do this week's YouTube video. It's why I think you need to watch it, because I've got some surprising stats, and also I'm going to tell you how to navigate the different types of assessments out there. So stay tuned. Hi, hello, how are you? I'm Sarah Curto, and I am the career coach who helps people find their dream jobs or get their next promotions, where they work less, make more money, and finally feel fulfilled and happy doing work that they love. I love this training. I love all of the trainings I do. I come here every week on this YouTube channel and drop one. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss a single one, because I really put a ton of thought into what you need to hear as a job seeker, as someone who wants to grow and develop their career, as someone who wants to explore a new career with a career change or a pivot. And I always love to make sure that I'm covering off the topics that you need to know, including this one. Okay, so let's start by me telling you the 4 most common assessments out there and how often that they are used. Whether or not I'm 100% positive of these stats, there are a variety of studies, and I'm not exactly sourcing them. Like I said, I sometimes do. The last video, job search stats you need to know. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. There it is up there. Okay, skills assessments. So many companies, according to one study, upwards of 82% of companies utilize skill assessments to evaluate candidate skills and technical abilities, specific job-related skills. The most common one is the Excel test that a lot of people have to do. And so a skill assessment is very common. And then we have the personality test. Around 60 to 70% of employers use a personality test or assessment. And this is to gauge a candidate's cultural fit, their work style, and behavioral tendencies. Just want to know more about the candidate as a person. And then we have the cognitive assessments. Think like the classic IQ test. These tests really look at problem-solving skills, cognitive skills, critical thinking, and the stat that I found that I could not really dispute was 65 to 75% of employers. But in my experience as a recruiter and now 6 years as a career coach, that doesn't ring true. It doesn't feel true. But we're gonna prepare for that stat. You know, that's what I said in the last one. We prepare for the stats so that we're not caught off guard. So we're going to take that stat seriously, I guess. And then the last one is emotional intelligence. Now, this is the least likely to be used. Only roughly around 20 to 30% of companies use EI or emotional intelligence assessments to measure, you guessed it, emotional intelligence, which is definitely a value, a skill that we're seeing become more necessary and valued in the workplace. So I can see that one raising over time. So let's talk more about how to prepare for them. Now, technically, assessments can't be used to make a hiring decision, at least according to the ESA rules in Ontario and in most of Canada, meaning that because of many issues, you will never hear someone say you did not get the job because of your results on this assessment. Potentially the skills assessment, because that's different. There's a more of a high correlation, but definitely personality cognitive assessments. We can see some discriminatory practices arising with those. So you won't hear that you did not get it because of your results there. But the truth is, I have declined hundreds of people over that span of 15 years because of their assessment results. So what can you do about it? Here are my top 4 tips on how to tackle the assessment so that they are not the reason you don't get the job. Okay, number 1, take the assessment more seriously. I saw that many people would rush through them to get it done. Figured it was just a check mark because that is what they're told. It's just something every candidate has to do. So I understand that, but you have to take it seriously because they're taking the results seriously, which means do not take it on your phone. Do not take it in a noisy place where you're constantly distracted, and don't take them when you're tired after a long day at the office. Be refreshed. Do it on a computer in a room by yourself, and maybe not even have your phone in there so it's not dinging with notifications. Okay, number 2, answer with your gut. This is especially key for the emotional intelligence and the personality tests, because we often are wanting to kind of like trick them in a way. We want to answer how you think the hiring manager or the hiring team wants you to answer. But the thing is, like, I studied this. They put questions, extra questions in the assessment to test for that very thing. So then what happens in your results is the results are inconsistent. And then the decision makers get a little hesitant about hiring these inconsistent test results because they don't want to hire someone that's trying to hide their true selves. They don't want to have this like sudden shock of who they are. So don't just answer with your gut. Don't try and trick them. Be yourself at the end of the day. We want them to hire you anyway. Like, it's exhausting trying to be somebody else at work. So much harder to be successful because you go to work, you have to become this person, and then you have to try and be successful. It's like, instead of just showing up and being successful, like, so you want them to hire you. Okay. Tip number 3, be quick. Now, this is for the cognitive assessments. The other ones don't really matter as much. Sometimes a skills assessment could be timed, so it could matter for that. But now that cognitive assessments are more common, and most of them are timed. And let me tell you, if they doesn't just spit out a number and that's it. Okay, why don't I back up and tell you a little bit? Most cognitive assessments have probably around 50 questions. 50 questions seems to be the norm, and you usually have anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to answer those 15 questions, and the number of questions you get right is scored out of 50 to give you your mark. So you do want to be quick as possible, because the more questions that you are able to answer, the more likely you can get a higher score, okay? Because it doesn't just spit out, like, say, a 20, and they're like, oh, okay, a 20. No, most of the time, the cognitive assessment company is going to assess the job description and spit out a number or a range that the individuals, the hiring team, should be looking for in the potential employee. So if you get 20, but the range that they've been sort of instructed or guided by, consulted, whatever, kind of advised, what's the word, is 25 to 30, then you're not going to get the job. So they're looking for that ideal score. So you need to be quick. You need to read the question, determine the answer, and then submit. You don't review it. Now, that leads me to tip number 4. Practice makes perfect. So this goes for skills assessments and cognitive assessments. For skills assessment, ask in your recruiter interview, Are there going to be any assessments and tests that you need to complete? If there's a skills assessment, ask what skills so that you can practice it, especially if you haven't used that skill in a little while, before the test. If you have an understanding that this sort of role has this typical skills assessment, you're going to want to practice right away, because then the better you do, the better likelihood you're going to get hired. So that's the skills assessment. Cognitive assessments are a little bit more difficult. And why they can be discriminatory is people, in my experience, I had a few positions that relied heavily on cognitive assessments. What they do is what I saw, is that I would see students do better than older individuals. And it's not because brains are slower as you get older, which might be true for some people, but it's more the practice. Younger individuals are just kind of fresh out of school. They're used to taking tests. Older individuals are not, because they've been out of school generally for a lot longer, obviously. So if we prime our brain by practicing, then that allows you to get better and better at that quickness. That ability to take a test quick is a skill that you can develop. Whether you're getting the answers right or wrong, that's a different story. But you also kind of get more familiar with the answers. Now you're asking me, like, Sarah, how the heck am I supposed to practice for this? Well, here's how. So Wonderlic is the most common cognitive assessment. It's also used by the NFL and a lot of large organizations like that, where if you want to have a chance in hell at getting it, you have to take this Wonderlic test. So there are ample sample tests and practice tests for you to take online. So Google it and practice. Now, chances are, like other ones, if you want to look up a specific one, they're much harder to find, and that might not be free, the practice ones, but Wonderlic ones are. And it's 13 minutes to answer 50 questions. So it is like the best, easiest way to just ace that cognitive assessment. Okay, so a rundown on the tips. So I want you to take the assessment seriously. I want you to answer with your gut. I want you to be quick, and I want you to practice, practice, practice. Okay, what assessments have you had? Comment below. Let me know, especially if you've had like the more rarer ones, like the physical assessment or a medical assessment or a psychological assessment. Let me know, because if I need to do another follow-up one of these, I definitely will. Okay. Have a great day. See you next week. If you liked this video, hit like. Don't forget to subscribe. You know all the things. Okay, see you next week. Bye. If you liked this video, then I invite you to join me in the Find Your Dream Job program, where you work less, make more money, and finally feel fulfilled doing work that you love. Find out more at www.sarahcurto.ca/CYLA. See you there.